Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Cloak, and for tonight we're going to be starting our thick mitts. We're going to work step by step through them for your first project, and it is a in the round knitting. Don't be intimidated, we'll get through it. To start, we're going to count off a couple stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. We're going to cast on 10 stitches and knit a little swatch so that we can measure our stitches out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. And to make this swatch, I'm going to purl the first row. 1, 2, so you remember, in through the front door, run around back, out through the front door, off pops Jack. It's the purl stitch for the first row. We're going to turn, and we're going to knit this row. So in through the front door, run around back, out through the front door, off pops Jack. So we're creating a gauge swatch here. We're going to purl this row. And I didn't mention it in the beginning, but what I did here was I'm knitting with my yarn double, so I'm using both ends. See, one from the center of the ball, one from the outside, to make these mitts extra thick. Okay, now we have enough stitches. So you take a ruler. I have this little handy dandy gauge reader that you can also measure your needles with, and you hold it up starting, I do in the middle because your stitches on the outside will be smaller, and you count. Let's see if this works. 1, 2, 3, and that little extra half. So there we go, 1, 2, 3.5 stitches. So it's 3.5 stitches equals 1 inch. So for the thick mitts, you don't need to keep your swatch, you can just reuse your yarn. For the thick mitts, the gauge is 3.5 stitches equals 1 inch, measured over stockinette stitch, which is all knit stitches. So on one side you knit, on the other side you purl. And to start, it says using yarn double, cast on. We're going to be doing the larger child size, 28 stitches. So let's count out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 20. 30 plus a little extra slip knot, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. We got a long tail, but that's fine. Okay, so for circular knitting on double pointed needles, you're going to take 28 stitches and divide them onto your needles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So being careful not to twist. You can see here all the purls on the inside. You're going to hold them. Let this middle needle drop. Make sure you've got your tail and not a big fat knot. There we go. So whatever, if you have issues, don't panic. Usually it can be fixed. And then taking your fourth needle, and these are size 10.5, which is in the pattern. Pearls on the inside, tail over here. You're going to knit your first stitch. You're not really worrying about this. You're working with one needle, the first needle, and then your loose needle. You take your knitting yarn, not the tail, and you're going to knit one stitch. Knit one stitch, yarn to the front, purl one stitch. Yarn to the back, knit one stitch. Yarn to the front, purl one stitch. Yarn to the back, knit one stitch. Yarn to the front, purl one stitch. All the way to the end. Knit one, purl one. All you're doing is moving the yarn between them, then doing your knit. You're to the end of your needle, you turn, you grab the next needle in line with your left hand, slide the stitches up, pull the yarn to the front for a purl. Use your loose needle and put it into the purl stitch, purl one stitch. Yarn to the back, knit one stitch. Yarn to the front, purl one stitch. Knit, purl. Knit, purl. Knit, and purl, and knit. Okay, again, be careful not to twist. We're just moving around. I like it to be hanging over there. Slide your stitches up on your needle from the left. Take your loose needle, pull your yarn to the front for a purl stitch. Purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Okay, so at this last one, you pull your little tail, your unattached tail, a little bit tighter. And you see I've got the gap between your needles. That's fine. It's going to work out later. And for this next row is a knit stitch. So you insert your needle to knit, take your knitting end, pull your first stitch tight, your first knit stitch tight, then you put your yarn to the front and you purl your next stitch. See, it closed up the gap quite nicely. So you're just going to do that for the next couple rows. Pull that end to the start of the round tight. Okay, so you're going to work knit one, purl one in the round for, let's see, 3 inches. So that's your homework for the week. Knit one, purl one rib for 3 inches, and then we're going to switch to stockinette stitch, which is just plain knit stitches, and knit until your mitten cuff measures 4 inches. So again, knit one, purl one rib until it measures 3 inches. And to measure, everybody measures a little bit differently, but I hold my ruler starting at the top right now with those 2 rows is about a 1/2 inch. You can measure it from here. It doesn't matter how you measure it, if you measure over the needle or under the needle, as long as you're consistent with both mittens. If you're making a pair of something, you want to always be consistent. So you're going to work on that. Then you're going to, after 3 inches, switch to stockinette stitch, and you're going to knit until the entire piece measures 4 inches. And I'll meet you back here next week, and we'll work on the thumb gusset, which again is not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy, and once you get the hang of it, you'll be like, this is a piece of cake. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.